I forgot I did this. Wait. Hi, hey there, it's me, Just Variety, and today we are back with some school-related stuff. But I swear this will be the last, or at least the last in a while. But yeah, for today, we will be tiering all of the past, or most of the past article titles that I've done over the 3 years I've been a school journalist. And my category for school journalism back then, now I can actually say back then because I graduated high school, and that was from the last 3 years, as I've said, of me being a high school student. I also joined news writing, and my category back then was science writing. So most of these titles would focus on science, and by science I mean the general big picture of science. Like, I'm pretty sure some of these have like life science, some of them technology, some of them AI, because it was a pretty hot topic and honestly still is, but mostly in certain fields. Because if I made an article about AI that encompasses everything AI did, then that would be more than 10 pages, I think. But yeah, we're only going to be ranking the article titles that I did back then, because I think if we also rated the content of the actual paper itself, it would take way longer, and it opens up the potential for plagiarism, and I kinda don't want that. And technically, since I've already published all of these articles, they're just not well known because they are just school articles. They are technically still protected by copyright, but I don't want to be subject to someone plagiarizing my work. So we're only rating the titles. If you like the titles, then I guess sure. Not directly copy them though, because some of these are general, too general in fact, that I'm already considering giving them an F. But, or no, we don't have F here. This is just S, A, B, C, and D. But yeah, some of these are too general to the point that I am very willing to just give them bottom tier right now. But some of these are pretty good actually. I'm not sure if there are any S-worthy titles here. S-tier worthy titles, but I guess we'll just check. I just took a picture of all of the past articles that I've done. I had my wonderful coach make copies of my past articles so I can review them, and now here they are. I just took pictures of the titles and then blurred out the information about personal stuff and also real stuff, I guess. And yeah, right here we have 19 titles to rate actually, and these span from, I think, around here, around 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are my first year of being a science article writer. Some of these are from the second year, some of them are from my last year, which was just last year too, or no, a couple of months ago. I'm not sure. I'm already not sure. I forgot. But yeah, much like yesterday's stream, us doing the math competition questions, it would be nice to see some insights if we've improved or not, and to like figure out ways on how we can improve some other stuff as well. I'm not sure if I'm still going to be a science article in the future while I'm in college, or maybe even after college, or if I'm gonna have different things now. But nevertheless, it's going to give me like a check again on my academic knowledge, or at least a general overview of I don't know. Wait, I'm thinking. Words are evading me. But yeah, right now what I'm thinking of is just to see if we improve, or if I improved or not. And if there are improvements, then cool, how did I do it? If I didn't, then what can I improve? That's just gonna be like last time, and I hope you guys get entertained by this. because these are some of the stuff that I've been wanting to do for a couple of months now. Ever since I've got the idea, I've only been thinking of how I'm gonna execute them. And yeah, these two streams, this one and yesterday's one, are those ideas that I've got from a couple of months ago. But don't worry. It's not all gonna be school-related stuff. Like, let's seize the moment. Let's seize the fact that school is finally done, or at least on my side. So after all of these school-related streams, we're gonna go back to our usual gaming and probably drawing some other time and whatever we think about. So yeah, without further ado, let's start it off with the I don't think it's that good. Article title. Wait, I'm just adjusting my brush size. And yes, I am going to be writing down my score, school style again. But no, I do not miss school. I'm just reminiscing specifically on my performance back then compared to today, or the more recent years. There we go. Here's our first one. It's my 5th output actually. It's not my first, second, or third. I think I formatted some of these wrong. So we're starting from my first year as a science article writer, but we're starting off with the last output that I made. I think the 5th one is output 1. Yeah, the layer that I have named 5 is actually my first output. So whatever. The important thing is we are starting from our first year. So yeah, let's see. Output 5. Fish live, fish die, fish kill. There are also some of the first couple of parts that I included. This wasn't intentional to be included in the picture, but it's there and I don't really mind, so it's probably okay, whatever. Oh, this can also give us a bit of an idea on what the article is supposed to be. But if my memory serves me correct, then I should remember most, if not all, of these. And I don't even know that I didn't even realize that I made 19 articles in the span of my 3 years working as the school science article writer. That's pretty awesome to reminisce about the memories. Maybe I can also tell a bit of stories here and there whenever I think of some. Right now I can't think of some. And yes, much like last time, I just got home from the gym, so I'm getting pretty tired. That's also one of the reasons why I decided to do these types of streams recently. The Patreon stream that I did for this week just had me talk about how I did the behind the scenes, or like the ideas I had while making the Just Variety logo, banner, intro, and outro. And then the stream yesterday was about just doing math stuff. And that was probably a bit too heavy on the jump from just yapping about my ideas in the Just Variety rebrand to math, heavy mental workload, to now this. But yeah, as you've noticed, most of these are not that too heavy on what I usually do, such as like if I game and I'm using most of my muscles to move, and that's because I'm kind of warming up to start and mix the heavy, I don't want to say heavy, but I guess moderate workload of streaming and the heavy workload of working out. So that's why these past couple of streams are just pretty simple because I don't want to overwork myself too much. But yeah, enough tangents. That tangent costed us about 10 minutes or so. First output, for real this time, for real. Fish live, fish die, fish kill. Already my first reaction to this is it is pretty bland. There's nothing going for it. I guess we kind of draw the attention of readers with the repetition of the word fish, and each clause, each individual, like this before the commas, before the commas, not the comas, comatose. That's a different thing. Before each clause only has 2 syllables, so I guess it's kind of pleasant to hear. Fish live, fish die, fish kill. I don't remember if I was trying to reference anything from here, and I mentioned that now because some of the articles that I did actually reference a lot of other media as well. Or I don't know, I'm not sure how many article titles I did that reference other stuff as well. But I know for a fact that some of the competition articles that aren't present here, because sadly I couldn't request the competition articles that I did to have a copy and then give it to me, because that's sadly not owned by the school. I do still technically own it because I was the one that made it, but I had to pass it to our competition judges so that they could grade it, and I never got it back. So yeah, I can't rate them. I do somewhat remember some of their titles, but not exactly. So I don't want to do injustice to those titles as well. They're just gonna be the unsung hero of my article journey, of my science journalism journey. But yeah, as I was saying, fish live, fish die, fish kill, pretty bland. It didn't even go over what fish we're talking about. I think it's just the general fish. I think the idea of this science article, this specific article, was supposed to be how fishes are managed when it comes to agriculture, stocks, and whatnot. How the higher the demand, the less fish there are because they're getting taken, and the less fish there are makes it harder to produce more fishes, and making it more in demand because of the scarcity of the fishes due to the difficulty of fish reproduction due to the immediate taking of the former fishes. If you understand the flow, I think that's what the article's about. Back then, a shortage on fish was prominent. Yeah, so it is already mentioned. It headed straight into the punch of the article. But yeah, that was what I was told to anyway. It starts off with general, it gets more specific with the overview of the topic, and then this is what the journalist adds. So from specific, we generalize it. So let's say we can say that this is the problem, this is how it affects us, this is a solution that specifically helps this, and what other advancements are there, how does it help the bigger picture. It's the reverse hourglass format, and that's a pretty useful, pretty big part of science journalism. In the first year that I was doing science journalism, I sort of already had a grasp on how to do the reverse hourglass technique, but then I still try to make the flow of my articles somewhat different, but still following the hourglass format, because I wanted it to have different styles, not necessarily to make it inconsistent or have variety. That's actually bad in this case, but I tried different approaches to see which one was more eye-catching, I guess, and entertaining to read, regardless of what the topic was and how long the explanation was. But I didn't want to make it so that it's too diluted, the information in the article itself. So it's kind of a balance of how you formed it, how you styled it, and how you utilize the reverse hourglass. But in the first couple of months that I started out as a science journalist, I still didn't fully know how to manipulate and have the hourglass be the thing that I control instead of the hourglass controlling me, and basically me just following a set of instructions. I still tried moving away from the hourglass to try different approaches. One of the articles that I did that I don't have the title for in this term, actually, I had an approach where it still falls under the hourglass format, but the interesting spin that I had on it was I followed how patient diagnoses went. So, and befittingly enough, the topic that I had for that article was about treating a specific illness. I forgot what it was though, but I started out by obviously giving an overview of the topic and then slowly specifying on what that topic is about. But I did it in a way that these first couple of information was formatted in a way such that it was like a doctor giving symptoms, and then we're slowly trying to figure out the disease. Though I already mentioned the disease like around here in the article, we're slowly understanding why the disease is the way it is. And then we slowly start growing out again from that to explain the bigger picture. So that's what I did. It's not just a general to specific to general type. And I mentioned all of that because that's going to be a pretty big thing when looking at the titles, because the hourglass is what kind of dictates or is what the fundamental format of articles are from start to end. And what is the start of articles? The title. And for this, I think the problem is that it's too general. The hourglass in this scenario looks like this, in my opinion, because fish live, fish die, fish kill. So what's the new thing? What's the news that I'm spreading? That fish live, fish die, fish kill? Well, we already know that. It's quite obvious. There's nothing too interesting about this. It's not even that eye-catching because it feels a bit too long, and not only that, it's redundant with all of the fishes. Though that's part of the, I guess, wordplay. Yeah, I don't think this one is it. So, for one of my first couple of articles, I can't even say that this was good. I'm gonna give it a D. There we go. So next, papers, please. No, that's a wrong game. Please don't copyright me. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting start. I managed to give out some information to compensate from the horribleness of that first title. If I were the reader, I wouldn't have been interested in that. And I'm just being honest here. That was my work as well. And here's our second title. It's diving deep into sinkholes. I like the wordplay here. And not only that, not only are we like utilizing the topic as part of the wordplay, because as you can probably tell, the topic of the article is about sinkholes. Sinkholes, although not common like other natural disasters when lacking in knowledge, blah 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 blah. This, I think it's more of us telling the readers, or it's more of me telling the readers about sinkholes. It's more of informing rather than informing. But no, it's more of informing rather than us, or me rather. It's more of that than providing new information. There we go. It's more of a review, I guess, rather than a news. A review just glosses over what's already known, just to spread that specific information, whereas a news, as the name implies, says something new. And some of the articles that I've made are actually considerably news, I think, what you can say. That's why I keep saying article, because sometimes they fall between the new and the known already. So you can't really stick to saying one. Like this, especially the fish die, fish live, fish kill, or whatever. That was more on the review side. It's not on the news side. So I just stick to saying article to umbrella term all of these articles that I've made, all of these papers that I've made. That is another term that I can say. It's synonymous, I think. But papers is too broad. Much like the title earlier. But unlike the title earlier, here we have sinkholes. And you can't you can't really go too specific on sinkholes, because another thing that you have to take note of when making science articles is that everyone should be able to understand it. So you can't go too technical and say like this specific type of sinkhole and then just talk about this specific type of sinkhole for the entire article. That's gonna be too niche, and not only is it too niche, I think it would already be too technical for the commoner's view, because not everyone is a professional into sinkholes, and that also gives us article writers the advantage of not having to know too much information. But one advantage I do have, one of the reasons why I was also picked as the school's science journalist, is that I have a pretty wide range of knowledge when it comes to science stuff. It's like me with math. Like, I know a lot of stuff about math that goes beyond what is taught in school, and that has been like a pretty consistent thing about me ever since elementary. That's why I soon grew out of having interest at whatever's taught at school, because either I already knew it or I wouldn't even use it when I grow up. But yeah, I'm not sure if I could even set that as an example. One thing I'm for sure though is, much like with me being very advanced with math, English, and science, one thing I could say that people should do is that you should go for it. Go for what you want to do. And that's what I did with math, science, and English. I pursued them, and now look where I am. I'm a streamer that speaks in English most of the time. I made articles. Can't even say make because it's not a thing that I do now. But yeah, I made articles, and yesterday I did a math stream. That's crazy. So yeah, go for the things you like. But when it comes to taking interest, I think you can still find interest in some other stuff. For me, it's just a case of I'm lazy, and that's bad. But yeah, for the diving deep into sinkholes, not only are we utilizing the topic as part of the wordplay sinkholes, we're also incorporating one of the tricks that you'll see me utilize a lot later in the other titles, because I noticed that I had a pretty interesting liking to this sort of writing when it comes to the title. And it is alliteration. I believe assonance is when the vowel gets repeated. Alliteration is for consonants. So yeah, I really like utilizing alliteration and assonance. It's pretty catchy, diving deep into sinkholes. And not only that, diving deep is already a term of itself. It's not a term that I made up specifically just for this title. It's a well-known line, it's a well-known phrase. So yeah, this is pretty solid on its own, but also managing to incorporate the topic into the title, I think that's pretty good, pretty solid in my opinion. So I'm kind of tempted to give it an A, and I honestly forgot the other titles that I put here. If I see them, I'm gonna remember them and the topic that I did on them as well, and how I formatted each article. But as of right now, compared to the last one, only going off of the last one that we did, this is a solid 8 here. It was pretty good. So there's your grade, past J. It was pretty good, pretty solid, I would say. Totally not biased, like actually. I told you I wouldn't be biased. The first one right off the bat was a D tier. There aren't gonna be Fs. Yeah, because this one is S. So yeah, let's move on. We could always just consider DSF and then CSD and then BSC, ASB, SSA. Yeah, we could always do that. But okay, now we get to see a variety of stuff. No pun intended. We get to see finally the duality, I guess that's a better word, the duality of my article titles. But to be fair, this was still in the first year that I was a science journalist, or the first year I was a science journalist in high school, because in elementary, in the school before high school, I was already a science article writer, I believe, back then. But I don't remember any of the outputs that I did. I don't think they were any good back then. Or at least, they probably will be incomparable to the quality of the articles that I do now. And let's see if that statement holds true though with our next article title, which is To Disseminate and Eliminate COVID-19. This was one of the first, as you can see, output 3. This was one of the first articles that were given to me, or no, one of the first topics that were given to me, because this is the first year I was a science article writer, science journalist. But this was also the first year after pandemic, when schools started to reopen again with face-to-face classes. So COVID was still a pretty big thing back then. Oh, and I think I can't say that word. The virus. Yeah, the virus was still a pretty big thing back then. So they kind of wanted me to make an article about that. This, again, much like last time, falls more in the informing category instead of the new stuff category. And I think it's just a pretty general review, I would say. It literally just reviewed over what should and shouldn't be done in the pandemic. Over the past few years, the main struggle of people over blank of COVID-19, a disease brought by the coronavirus, affected, I'm pretty sure, blank. Until now, we explore how times have changed. Oh, and you can also see some of the notes my coach left. You can clearly tell that back then I wasn't as good with the notes. I think some of the titles still also have notes. But one thing my coach is pretty proud of is, and I guess I gotta say this too, I gotta give myself credit as well, and that is the more and more articles I put out every year or each year I was a science journalist, the notes that my coach had to write in my articles lessen and lessen. It got less and less. There we go. So that kind of indicated that I'm getting good. And I don't want to say that my coach is just getting worse. Because my coach is actually one of the article writers back then too, in their time. And then not only that, that coach that I had is also a literature teacher in English, which made it so that of all people, that person would be the most qualified to do this. There are a lot of teachers as well in our school that did that, but this one in particular, I think was just perfect for this specific occasion of being my coach in science writing. But enough about notes, because I don't think I will note any of these. And to disseminate and eliminate, here's another trick that I like using, and that is utilizing rhymes. Disseminate and eliminate. I like rhymes, because even just from the start, I already thought of, okay, I know the title has to be catchy, but how can you be catchy? Well, it's pretty simple. You see it in ads all the time. Most of them are just keep it simple, so it's easier to repeat, easier to remember. Some of them play rhymes, play alliterations and assonances. I don't know. You'd think an article writer would know how to properly pluralize that, but no, I don't even know if pluralize is a word. To turn into plural form. Whatever. But I think as title goes though, this title in particular is pretty simple. You can't really get any more specific nor general in this, because I was literally just making an article about COVID-19, or no, the virus, not necessarily the virus, because I think it is copyrighted. But again, I think fish live, fish die, fish kill, if that even is the title for that. Fish live, die, and kill. I'm just gonna say that because it's shorter. See, even now, like reading out loud that title is pretty bad. Like, yeah, the word repetition is okay, but the more you do it, the more tedious, monotonous, and annoying it becomes. Especially now that I'm rating them. But I think Fish, Live, Die, and Kill is a pretty perfect start because we just get to see what a bad title looks like. And yes, for my first year output, Fish, Live, Die, and Kill is a pretty bad name. It's too general. It didn't gloss over what the topic is about. Like, is it about the economy of how fish circulate so that you can take them, you can fish them and then sell them? Is it about the ecosystem? Is it about their effect on like energy creation when it comes to dams? Like, you have no idea. It's too broad, but sometimes I get away with broad. One of those examples being this: to disseminate and eliminate. Again, this is just a review, and much like any review, you can't get any more simple than this. You can't get any simpler than this. And it gives the message across. We're telling people how to disseminate and eliminate. But I think the disseminate here specifically mentions disseminating information about COVID-19. I think that's why there are notes here to swap stuff out. Because it would be bad if you're like spreading the virus or the disease. The virus is this one. The virus, COVID is the disease. My bad. But yeah, disseminating the disease would be bad. So I think the only thing that was missing from this was more clarity. In terms of rhyme game, it was pretty simple as well. It didn't rhyme with 19 though. I think I would have thought of a better title for this now that I'm 2 years more experienced than 3 years ago. Real quick math problem there. But yeah, I don't want to give this a B per se. I feel like it's a low B. But I think that's also being generous. It's too general, the thing is. And I have no idea why the colon is circled. I think you can't use colons. But I'm almost certain that I use colons in my other titles that did well. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe my coach just circled that for no reason. I don't know. I have genuinely no idea. But yeah, the final verdict though is I'm going to give it a C. I'm gonna give it C for the virus and the disease. Yeah, I think that's good. Wait, I drew that on the wrong layer. I'm putting the gradings on a different layer in case I want to change some of these later in comparison to if we see like a very, very bad title, then I might give the Fish, Live, Die, and Kill probably a pretty faint C tier, probably a C tier colored with D tier, with just how bad that other one is in comparison to even the worst one we've seen so far, Fish, Live, Die, and Kill. Yeah, for this one though, I'm gonna give it a C. So there you have it, 3 C's. C tier, co-virus, and co-disease. Up next, this should be the second title that I ever made in high school. Let's see what it is. It's Output 2. Maximum effort, minimal waste. Okay, already the first thought that came into my head is that this is too general as well. Maximum effort, minimal waste. Is it talking about an innovation? That I can't even say. Are we talking about spreading information to reduce waste, or are we talking about a new innovation that reduces waste? not wage. I don't know why I said that. But yeah. It does say maximum effort, minimal waste though. Okay. Not only is it vague, it's also confusing. So are we putting in a lot of effort to reduce waste? Or are we talking about something that gives a lot of effort, a lot of work, while only having minimal waste? Okay, this is also D tier. As I was saying earlier, fish live, die, and kill might probably be the worst one we see, but apparently I got disproven real quick. It's so hard to talk about this title. At least in Fish, Live, Die, and Kill, we had wordplay that was easily just counterable by making it simpler with extracting the fish, the word fish, from every clause and then just making it an enumeration on what fish did. But here, it's so weird. It's like the same format as well if you notice. There's clause 1, here's clause 2. And it follows the same format of almost the same syllables, with minimal and maximum having the same number of syllables, effort and waste only being the two different things. It's also alliteration on the M's of maximum and minimal. But that's it. I think this is a pretty good example though of, I guess, misusing the tricks that I said earlier of utilizing alliteration like that for one. I'm not sure if we're gonna see any hint of rhyming though, any hint of bad examples of rhyming. This I don't even know if I can consider effort and waste. Yeah, those don't rhyme. I'm not counting it as rhyme. If I did, I think that would just be a disgrace to the world of rhyming. But yeah, for me personally though, I think this is pretty bad. This is certainly a D tier, and I'm not even gonna go back to recolor the Fish, Live, Die, and Kill because this is on a tier on its own already. You can just tell with how fast I tiered this. It's that bad. Waste has often been regarded as inevitable. I was taught to use a dash here, not a hyphen, a dash, to replace the comma. May it be. This, I'm pretty sure, is an actual term though. My coach said that I should just say, may it refer to production of goods. It was just, I have no idea. May it be production of goods. It's an actual sentence. I have no idea why I was called out to just use refer. I don't know. Maybe the just English is just too good. Ooh, maximum effort, minimal waste. That was minimal effort, maximum waste, with how bad that joke was. Ooh. Anyway, moving on. I don't want to linger on that title too much. But anyway, here we go. The last title of the first title of the first year that I was a science journalist in high school. This, I don't have any expectations. I honestly think that I'm gonna give it a D tier right off the bat as well. But so far, we've got 2 D tiers, 1 A, and 1 C. It's not looking too good for year 1J right now. Let's see if the very first one is a one-hit wonder. Output 1. Output 1 is Nature's Force Virus. Okay. This, I will admit, I think this was one of the pictures that I used for the thumbnail, right? Let me just take a look real quick. What's the thumbnail? Oh no, I used the maximum effort, minimal waste one. I gave that C on the thumbnail? What? Okay, when I was making the thumbnail, I guess I was just out of it. But maximum effort, minimal waste is so bad. Actually, now that I'm deep diving it, I just made this thumbnail in a pretty quick second. The background as well, the blurred background, are all of the past articles that I've done, or most of it. But yeah, that was pretty bad. The maximum effort, minimal waste. It also looks very counterintuitive if you think think about it in a certain way. But the problem is, you can think of it in multiple ways with how vague it was. That was just plain bad, in my opinion. Wait. Okay, I just checked something real quick. And let's get back to this. Nature's force barriers. This is another case of, sadly, the first one we reviewed now is very similar to the first one that I ever made. So output 1 going back to output 5, with it being too vague. You can clearly see that the first year I wasn't that good. But to be fair, like a good chunk of what you're looking at anyway when making articles is the content. So I think I managed to bring it back with the content of my articles. When it comes to titles though, maybe leave that to future J, past J, but not this J and not the future of present J. I mean your future J, past J, that is now my past J as well. Whatever. Less past J relative to me, but more whatever. Nature's force barriers, again, is pretty vague. I believe the topic here was supposed to be mangrove roots. How they hang out, or some of them hang outwards from the ground that they are planted on. So what happens is they kind of absorb most of the impact when waves are coming. And not only that, when floods happen, they also absorb a good chunk of water that I think significantly reduces the flood water that you experience. But yeah, it's too vague. There are a lot of other potential titles for this, because as I've said, it could work in the case of waves, it could work in the case of floods. You could also just say that it has a lot of use to avoid being vague on its own. You can implement the vagueness as part of the title, as part of the gimmick, like just variety. Doing different stuff is part of the gist, instead of doing different parts is not part of the gist, so it kind of falls prey to what even is this about. It's about vagueness. You could use that technique. Sadly, this doesn't use that. It literally only uses 3 words. So that's how you know you can't get anything out of this. And sadly, for the very first one, and I'm the type of person that really likes the first of anything, because it just shows where you've come from if it's already good on its own. Like the Iron Man Mark 1, the chunky, clunky, big, scrappy armor, that I really like, even though it's arguably and most likely the worst Iron Man suit out there. On a scale of S, A, B, C, D, I think I would honestly give it an A. But that's mostly probably from the nostalgia speaking. However, the counter argument that I can make about that, which I think should solidify its place as A tier, is how 1, it's only made out of scraps, and 2, for the first attempt at doing this, it did a pretty good job, and 3, it's almost on par with what with the arms of what Mark II had, and then Mark III, and probably even 4, with the flamethrower, the guns, or no, it didn't have guns, but still, the fact that it had weapons and it could already fly is insane. And that opening up Obadiah's inspiration to make the Ironmonger, I think that's pretty good evidence to say that that was the Iron Man Mark 1. Just from where you got that to make that big of a leap into technology already, that was pretty good. Anyway, this isn't Iron Man, this is Nature's Force Barrier, completely opposite to technology, and completely opposite to Iron Man's Mark 1 as well. This is a D tier. It's not looking good for year 1J. Let's have a recap on year 1J's grades. So not a good start. Or no, let's go. No, this is okay because they're layered in a way such that output 5 goes first. I keep burping. I didn't even drink anything carbonated today. I just had a lot of water. After I went to the gym, I was literally dripping earlier. Not the fashion one, not the dun dun dun. But yeah, let's review year 1 Jace's grades. Not a good start with a D, but a good recovery with A, and then it declined from there. Only getting D's after that. That sounds bad. Only getting a grade of D after that, after the C. That's how you know that year 1 J fell off. It wasn't good. But if we are looking at this from a chronological perspective, where output 1 and 2 both didn't have good titles, and then slightly improving by output 3, and then making a pretty solid title in my opinion, with diving deep into sinkholes, and then falling off again really quickly with Fish Live, Die, and Kill. I didn't know what bro was cooking there. Hopefully, year 2 J will bring it back. We'll give year 1 J some redemption. We're slowly inching away. We're slowly inching towards, actually, the present J. So I'm also starting to get nervous because once we get to the recent papers that I did, like a couple of months ago, now the pressure is on. Now we can actually see if I improved or not, because that's my final bullet to see if it hits, if we locked in or not. But yeah, the last output of the second year of Jay's science article journeys, and this is the start of the articles that I also started blurring out, or not blurring out, outright censoring some of the information, because some of the censored stuff are like, no, I'm not even gonna say. One of them is my name, obviously. Like, clearly, Just Varieties isn't my name. Jay's just a nickname. It would be weird being named Just Variety. But yeah, the last output of the second year starts us off with data superposition, a slow network and a slow development. Okay, for someone that really enjoys physics, I am more than willing to say what superposition means. So superposition means, imagine the famous Schrodinger's cat experiment, that you have a cat inside a box. Imagine this is a cat, and then it can literally be anything. This is just a thought experiment, but let's say in this instance it's a bomb, and the bomb has a 50% chance to detonate and a 50% chance to be a dud. And after a certain amount of time, that 50-50 chance will be rolled. So after that certain amount of time, the cat would either be dead or alive. Being in a superposition would mean that it would mean that the cat is both alive and dead. It's in a position of being dead and not dead or alive, both at the same time, because we don't know which one it actually is, because it was influenced by the 50-50 chance of it dying by the hands of the bomb. So that's what superposition is. Basically being in two places at once, having two conditions at once as well. That could also be what superposition means. And I mentioned that because usually superposition implies having two opposite things that are in superposition, much like being dead and alive, those two being opposites of one another. It doesn't have to necessarily be opposite qualities though, but more often than not, it is opposite qualities to each other. So for example, having an electron spin downwards and then having an electron measure a spin of upwards. So something like that. It's opposite again, with having down and up being two different things. But however, in this specific title, it's contradictory. It says superposition, yet it says slow network and slow development at the same time. Both of it mention slow, so that means if one is slow, the other is also slow, and that's what's causing the confusion. What even is this about? The Philippines was prominent as blue-collar workers during pandemic. Making internet connection? Oh, I think this is about online jobs. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And okay, data superposition, a slow network and slow development. I think it's about upgrading the Philippines' internet speed and how it develops it slowly, but it develops it slowly because the internet speed itself is slow. So maybe that's why Past J thought about mentioning superposition into this. Again, it's confusing on the title. It's still kind of vague. You only get a hint of what the topic is from the word data. And I guess slow development. So from that, you can already infer, oh, so we're like talking about data and how it develops slow or relatively slow, because I'm sure comparisons are one of the main thing that I have going for this article. That's also going to be a pretty big part of some of the titles, I think, because whenever it's regardless if it's an informative or a new news, regardless, the article usually benefits from having comparisons, especially if we're taking a look at subjective stuff, I would say. So you can say that this is big or small, but if I added another thing, then you can tell that this is small. But if I added another thing, then you can say that this is bigger to that. So comparisons are a pretty huge deal when it comes to articles as well, especially in informing subjective stuff, not just informing events, because you don't compare events like, oh yeah, when this baby was born, it was so monumental that you can compare it to the launching of this game. Like, no, you can't do that when it comes to events. When you're just giving qualities to certain stuff, informing about that quality in comparison to the quality of the other stuff that it preceded or succeeded, it really depends. But yeah, there are no comparisons in the title for something that needed comparison, because how can you say slow? Being a science journalist would also mean that you need to be as objective as possible. So saying that something is slow is subjective unless you say something that's faster. So you can say that it is slow because that is just faster than that. So intrinsically, or by definition, it is slow, relatively. However, in this title, there's really nothing. At least I'll give it the benefit that you can somewhat understand what the topic is about. It's about data. It's about slow network. It's about slow network being developed really slowly. The superposition is unnecessary. For how cool it is, it's sad to say that I honestly think that it's better off the title without the word superposition, because the superposition here, I think Past J was thinking about the explanation that I said earlier, how the slow network is being developed slowly, but it's slowly being developed because of the fact that it is itself slow and you need a fast network to develop it quicker. There we go. I incorporated a synonym there to avoid redundancy of words. But yeah, I will admit, comparing this again to Fish Live Die and Kill, I'd give it a C, just because you can at least infer what the topic is. And compared to the other D tiers that we have given, like what Nature's Force Varies, that you can't even figure out that mangroves is the topic for this one. Oh yeah, like here it shows mangroves actually, and giant bamboo as well. So from the title already, you have no idea. And I don't want to be cheap and say, oh, but the curiosity to figure out what the title is referring to makes you want to read the article. I have already thought about that back then when I was making articles, but I ultimately ended up not doing that. I think hopefully my other titles will defend me on this one, but I stepped away from that idea because I thought that the interest comes in wanting to know more instead of wanting to just satiate that curiosity, if you understand what I'm saying. So it's the difference of I guess knowing how to solve the Rubik's Cube using beginner's method to wanting to be faster. I think that's the comparison that I'm ultimately trying to tell here. And yeah, we're slowly learning more and more with how Past J dealt with this though. Because again, if you're gonna compare this to the fish one, see, I even shorted it out to fish, just the fish one. Fish Live Die and Kill is pretty long. It's not that catchy as well. It's not even catchy. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm not gonna be biased towards myself because I can sense when something is actually bad, and that was one of those times. And our next article title is Rabies Retaliation Regimen. Here's one of the things that I was talking about again, that I was talking about earlier. Alliteration, RRR. And wouldn't you know it, Hakos Bales of hololive English released a song named RRR or RXR? Whatever, Rogue Rat Runaway. And that is one of my favorite songs. And it's so fun to remember and to say it, because it's an alliteration. It only has 3 words. And yeah, it has very few syllables, just 5 syllables, with rogue and rat being 2 and runaway being 3. It's so fun to remember. It's short, it's sweet, it's alliteration, which makes it catchy. Like, based from research, alliteration should be more catchy than just random phrases, unless if it's like a mnemonic that you're kinda inclined to memorize, kinda inclined to remember. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about. For a science article, I don't know the science on this one as to why that is. But yeah, Rogue Rat Runaway, and to me, to just variety, the very first RRR that I did is Rabies Retaliation Regimen. I think it's pretty good. I'm going to say this outright. I think it's pretty good. If the other article that I immediately thought of giving a D tier, which one was it? I think it was the Maximum Effort, Minimal Waste, and the Nature's Force Barriers. If both of them had opposites, then this would be it. But not directly opposite that it's S tier, and here's why I don't think it's S tier. Like, yeah, it follows the same alliteration as well. It only has a couple of words, so it's easier to remember. Rabies Retaliation Regimen. But the difference, if you notice from me repeatedly saying both names, Rogue Rat Runaway, is that Rogue Rat Runaway is easier to pronounce than Rabies Retaliation Regimen. It feels like a tongue twister. That's why it's not only hard to say, it's also hard to kind of think about mentally on how you would go about saying this. Like, think of it right now. How would you say this without saying it out loud? You can think about it, but you kind of stumble and only just focus on retaliation, right? You know regimen, you know rabies, sort of. But when you get to retaliation, it's like la 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 shen. Regimen, there we go. And then that. Rabies Retaliation Regimen. Oh, I will also give this one a bit of bonus points with, I'm not sure if intentional, but the rhyming on retaliation and regimen, sort of, both ending in N. So Rabies Retaliation Regimen. The shun also kind of connects with the S of the rabies, but not really, because S and then shun the sound is a bit different. Now I'm kinda not sure if I should give it an A. It's pretty good though. It's short, it's sweet, it's alliteration. It gives an overview. That's one of the things that I still haven't mentioned actually. Is that it gives a pretty short overview, but already enough information to tell you what the article would be about. It's going to be about the regimen on how to retaliate against rabies, and need more words to be said. Now this is a good example of utilizing just a couple of words to convey what you're trying to say, because nature's force barriers, come on, like what are the force barriers and what is nature blocking? Nature has so many things going for it: sunlight, flooding, burns, landslides, earthquakes, volcanoes, man-made stuff. Too vague. Honestly, probably my worst one yet. But yeah, rabies retaliation regimen, for comparing it to the others, I'd say it's pretty good. I'd give it an A. It does a pretty good job of saying what the article is about. It's catchy, being an alliteration. There are subtle hints of rhyming, not too obvious. I'm not even sure if they were intentional or not. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a regimen on how to retaliate against rabies. Pretty short and simple. Let's see if we can get any better than that though. So far, we still have no S tiers. So let's see if second to last. No. Third to last output of year 2J science articles. Let's see if he can match it. Our title being, calculators is to math as AI is to. Now this is one of the first times that I started utilizing the idea of making the readers question, and this was one of the things that I was talking about earlier, the Rubik's Cube analogy, making the readers want to learn more as opposed to just wanting to know the base of things. It's like the thing with the sinkholes thing, but kind of the opposite. The sinkhole thing, the sinkhole article, only talked about sinkholes as a general person's point of view, not really taking into account the specifics, the science of it. A bit of science, obviously, because it's a science article in the end, but not the individual types, what affects it, and all of that. Oh wait, I did actually say some of the stuff that affects it. But you know what I'm saying, not too complicated stuff. The simple that people can notice and plan against, regardless if you know a lot or not, or if you have the proper equipment or not. But yeah, this one gives you the information already, and it compares it to something familiar. Or no, it doesn't give you the information already, but it does compare it to something you know. So calculators are used in math. So what will AI be used for? There are a lot of text here that I didn't intentionally include but are here. In decades prior, teaching math was more difficult aside from the undying something and then understanding math. Computations were more rigorous, manually writing down. Oh, and that's one of the things I was saying, comparison. So having a comparison to have an analogy to compare what the news is about. I think even though this is informing about AI, a review about AI, because AI was already pretty big back then, and it only gets bigger as time goes on. This is just a review, but I think it still falls into the new, because it gives a new perspective on how to think about AI as like a tool, as opposed to just a cheat sheet or whatever. A quote-unquote artist, an image generator, there we go. Not even artist. All of it just makes weird stuff. But yeah, this gives a comparison to what AI is just capable of. In mathematics, as you've known, as you should probably know, calculators are pretty useful because they can do the handwritten calculations in just a second usually. You just type in what you need and then you immediately what you get. So to a human brain, like imagine computing something very difficult without a pen and paper. Something pretty big, something pretty complex, a formula or whatever. And that's pretty difficult. So a calculator with that setting being set, you can think of the calculator as being a pretty powerful thing to use for mathematics. And that is still the fact today when it comes to number theory and stuff like that, set theory or whatever, visualizing shapes and geometry, all of that. Calculators are a pretty powerful thing. So that would mean that AI is a pretty powerful thing to something as well. So that already kind of implies what the topic of the article is about. And it makes it so that you don't necessarily have to read the article to know that AI is pretty powerful, because we already compared it to how calculators are very powerful in math. AI should also be very powerful to something. So that gives you the necessary information to infer that AI is pretty powerful, but to what? What can you use it for? And that's the interest of wanting to learn the more advanced Rubik's Cube strategy, the more advanced Rubik's Cube method and how to solve it. So this is the information, and this part is the part of wanting to have more information that will make you read the rest of the article. I think so far in all of the titles that we've done, this should deserve S tier. It's pretty good, I will say. It's solid, and on top of that, it manages to make a pretty good title using a couple of words with barely any letters. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to say barely any syllables, but now not only are syllables scarce in this title, letters as well. Is to, as is to. That's a pretty quick layouting of all of the words. And then we're just connecting calculators, math, and AI. And from that, you can already garner the information. This not using alliteration, rhyming, or that. Just using pure analogy to draw interest into the article itself. I think for a fact this deserves the very first S tier. So good job, Year 2J. This was pretty good, pretty solid. I like it. And I'm not being biased. I'm trying to break this down so that I'm not just basing it off of how much I liked the article and the title itself. I'm breaking it down so that I can meticulously see, like from an outside perspective, how can I look at this. And much like with pronunciation in the brain, this is also easy to think about. Calculators is to math as AI is to, because it's repetition. That probably is the I guess word trick that Past J used. Subtle repetition. And one of the more recent articles that I did is probably my cherry on top with all of these tricks with the title. And not only is it a trick on the title, it's also the entire article itself that I did is somewhat like a pretty good homage to all of the other articles that I've made. And that's because it somewhat goes full circle into the idea of having the reader engage with you, having the reader engage with the article. So it's not just, okay, so here's what I wrote, read it. It's more of, here's what I wrote, and here's why you're gonna think about this. And that's pretty cool. So I'm excited to see that. But for now, let's see other paper titles as well. And our next title is Upside Down Insane. There we go. Oh, this. I already don't like this. I remember this. This was one of the papers that me and Bash talked about when there was still school. Because when I got the copies of my past... when I got the copies of my past articles, we already glossed over it, me and Bash, just to see if there were stuff missing, and believe me, there were a couple of stuff missing, but I do remember some of the titles, and I just typed them here in Krita. But yeah, when we were glossing over the stuff, this was one of the pages that we stopped by for a quick second just to check it. And I say that because it caught our attention, but not in a good way. It caught our attention because it looks pretty bad. Pretty bad. I'm not even sugarcoating this one. Or, okay, compared to Fish Live, Die, and Kill, Nature's Force Barriers, and whatever the other D tiers are, okay, maybe it's not that bad. It gives us an idea on what the article is about. However, I think 1, it's way too long. 2, it looks weird. 3, it, no pun intended, feels weird. Because just read it. Listen to the feel immediately. What? I know the article is about haptic technology, how you can feel the music, not technically feel the music. Oh, but I guess also feel the music. Yeah. Oh, it's certain here. Feel music. But that's not my point. What I'm trying to say is, listen to the feel. No one says that. It might be a good way to start off the article by giving you the idea that we're feeling music. We're not just hearing it, and not in a way that we feel like we feel the words of the lyrics, how it's impactful to us. We're actually feeling it. And listen to the feel. Wait, the more I read this, the more weirded out I am by this. But yeah, we're listening to the feel, but we're not really listening. We're feeling, and yeah, see, you can immediately find like a counterpoint or a coin flip to what the first statement said. Listen to the feel, but feel the music. A new way to feel music. That I think is okay though, because when you say feel music, you're kind of, again, you're feeling the emotion of the lyrics and stuff like that, the message of the lyrics. But here, a new way refers to just the fact that it's haptic technology and you quite literally feel the music, the vibrations in your body, the vibrations of the music. Instead of going through your ears, you feel it in your, I believe it was your torso, because it was like a vest that you could wear that had motors on them, or solenoids or whatever, that would react to music and then pulse your body according to the music. I don't know, it's weird. Just get a bone transducer to do it for you. But I shouldn't also be judging this based off of the topic itself. The title is just bad. C tier. Because I see the music. Ooh. I should also stop doing that. But yeah, I'm gonna give this a C. It's not the worst. You can still infer what's... It's very difficult, but you can still infer what the article is about. It's about haptics technology. But you don't get the sense that it is talking about haptics technology now, are we? It still feels like a pretty weird opening to something. It's a weird combination of words, that's for sure. But yeah, dive into a swimming pool, feel the waters ripple, ride a roller coaster. I think it's like feel the wind blow, enter a concert and hear the cheers, the crowd, the song, live something, yet inaudible to an audience, people with difficulty hearing. Yeah, also the article opens up with the problem being that deaf people should be able to listen to the music, also be able to enjoy the sound of the music. That's a like problem of the entire thing. So what happens is like it pivots to haptics, like you can see in the second paragraph immediately after that. I don't know. I guess the formatting of this entire article was weird on its own as well. So moving on. I don't want to dwell on that. That was just plain weird. Nothing else. And it's rotated again. I think I took a picture of some of these weirdly. But yeah, here we go. I lost track on which article we're doing. I don't even know if we're already in year 3 or we're still in year 2. Okay, wait, no. I think we're already in year 3 actually. Because I've noticed that the year 2 stuff, not this one. The year 2 stuff had time thingies on their left side. Like here where Kobo is getting annoyed at. That's 3, I believe. This is 72. This is 86. And this is 65, yeah. Because one of the things that I also had to practice while being a science journalist was time. How to manage time. Not actually studying time like Einstein. What I'm talking about is, since competitions require us to complete an article in about an hour or so, I was also required to time myself. T-I-M-E, not T-I-E. I was also required to time myself to see how fast I could write a full article without being pressured. So that could also teach me to stay calm in the presence of the competition itself, to not get pressured by the time. I guess that's also one of the reasons why I don't really get pressured anymore when I got into competitions, because that was also part of my regimen, to practice dealing with the pressure, time pressure, stuff like that. But sometimes it still gets to me. Like last time, the last science journalism that I did, the last competition I did, I still felt time pressured because I didn't know what to do with the topic. The topic was pretty weird, and sadly I can't really show what the topic is because I don't have it here. That was one of the articles that I had to pass to our coach, to the judges. But one thing I did remember, it was about farming. And another reason why I felt time pressured, because other than I didn't know what to do with the topic because I don't know anything about farming. I obviously know the obvious stuff, but other than that, nothing. And yeah, opposite to that again, the natural farming stuff. Here's another AI article. And I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I don't think I'm. Oh, spoilers. But yeah, no, I was about to say I think this was one of the articles that I made that got officially published on a more mainstream paper at the school. But no, it's not. I have the other files here. Not files. I have the other titles here. And these titles were the ones that made it to the final school paper that was actually big and included not only the students in our year level but also included everyone. But yeah, this wasn't it. These 3 were those ones. And I'm just gonna check real quick. Yeah, okay, we are saving the best for last, or at least in my opinion, the best for last. And I'm not gonna be biased though. We're still gonna try and break that down. But I say it's the best because that's what tied it all together. The interaction between me and the reader. The pseudo interaction. Because it's not really both-sided. I can't even say if it's one-sided. I guess it is one-sided because I am conveying my article to the reader, but not necessarily going back to me the response of the reader. Anyway, here's another example of rhyming. ChatGPT and its bad publicity. I specifically tried rhyming the ChatGPT to something. And I thought about bad for chat, and then GPT would be publicity. Or just licity. GPT licity. I thought that was pretty good wordplay, and I think this is already in my 3rd year. Because again, as I've said earlier, that caused me to tangent off of this pretty long tangent is that the year 2 articles that Past J made had timestamps on them to measure how long they took. These year 3 articles still have timestamps on them, though they're not on the same place as they were in the past articles that I made. I figured it looked better if I put the if I put the timestamp at around here in the paper that I used to write my article on. But yeah, anyway, the title itself, ChatGPT and its bad publicity. This is more informative, I think, than it is new type of informative. It's a review on what's the cons of ChatGPT. Oh, and this was one of the last articles, since we're going from last to first per year. I think this is the last ever school article that I made before the competition article, because that doesn't count. I don't have a copy of that. But for the school articles that I've made, ChatGPT and its bad publicity. Yeah, ChatGPT and its bad publicity is the last school article that I made. That is so cool. And I say that because one of my best articles, according to the coach and some of the other literature teachers, said that one of my best, if not the best, article that I've done is about AI as well, about its rise, how AI was pretty versatile. And it's not the... Which one did we do earlier? Which one was it? This one, the first S tier. This wasn't it. And obviously they're not just basing it off of the title itself, but also with the content of the paper itself, of the article. But it's still interesting that one of my better articles that I've done for the school is about AI's rise. And then the last article that I do is about how AI is bad, clearly with its bad publicity. And that pivots me very well to my point onto why I think this is S tier. So far, we're just giving S tiers to the AI titles. But hear me out again for this one. This time, if the last time didn't have rhyming, which one was it? This didn't rhyme anything. Now this time, not only did we manage to tell what the topic is about in a short space, using a couple of words, a couple of syllables, not incorporating too complex terms like superposition, whatever the heck that is. It's not too long. It gives the overview of the topic real quick, real simple. It's not difficult to read. Like, think about saying ChatGPT and its bad publicity. It's quite simple. Also, think about it as well. You don't really get stuck on anything, unlike with the other one that I said, the rabies retaliation regimen. You get stuck with the retaliation because it's kind of a mouthful and somewhat of a tongue twister. Maybe you get stuck with GPT, but GPT on its own, I really can't do anything about that. And I think GPT sets up the rhyme pretty well for publicity. And it's pretty clean, I think. The city doesn't directly rhyme with PT because P is a hard word and C, I think, is a pretty smooth word. Like, when I imagine P, it's a full stop. But when you say city, you just go straight. So when you say P and then you stop and then T, and then if you say city, it's just one straight line. Anyway, for the rhyming though, despite that difference, the stop compared to the straightforward way of saying city, it's still a pretty good rhyme, I think. And if you didn't rhyme bad with chat, you can also rhyme pub with chat. So ChatGPT publicity Also with the tone of how you say it. And yeah, this immediately tells you as well what the entire article is going to be about, the cons, the disadvantage of using ChatGPT. And it's specific as well. It didn't just say AI, because there are other AIs. We can say that it's an AI that's used for generating images. It could be an AI that helped you compute or like make certain stuff, probably personal customer preference, all that stuff. But no, this is specific as well. It talks about ChatGPT, not just any AI, but specifically what ChatGPT has to offer. And though that encompasses a lot of stuff, ChatGPT is mostly known for its conversational engine anyway, how you speak to it and then it gives you responses based from what you said. So like answers to stuff, information that you need, and yeah. But the interesting part as well is why it's bad. Because why would that be bad? This is kind of a stretch though. I won't consider that as like the same format as earlier, how with the calculators to math as AI is to question mark. That is different from this in a sense that this doesn't really give you any initial information to want to have more information so that you read the article. This immediately heads straight to the you want more information part. Like, what does ChatGPT have to offer? But that's also kind of utilizing the mass idea in the first place. The fact that ChatGPT is already popular on its own, so you would, or Past J probably assumed that you would already know what ChatGPT is. But to be fair as well, I think you would only ever read this article anyway if you already knew about ChatGPT and AI as an idea as a whole. So there are a bit of creative jumps to make this title, but I think for its rhyming, for giving out the overview of the article in that short of a title, I think it deserves an S. An S for it being short and pretty superb. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty solid start for year 3J. So I guess, yeah, we did come back from the C tier of the first ever thing we did from year 2 with the last thing we did from year 3. Moving on. That was so awesome. Like a quick AI break again. Our next one is slanted again. I took a picture pretty weird again at a pretty weird angle. But anyway, Plastic Shredder Project Seller. Here's something that I remember. This is supposed to be an article about a plastic shredder, believe it or not. So, very interestingly, and I'm starting to hype up because recent Past J, year 3J, is starting to learn how to effectively manipulate, how to take advantage of using a few words but still conveying the entire overview of the article, because the topic of this is a plastic shredder, and specifically a certain project that aims to be sold. But I will say though, it's not that specific on what plastic shredder, because there are a lot of shredders out there, and most of them can also shred plastic. It doesn't have to be specifically a plastic shredder. Like, other shredders can also shred plastic. And there are also other plastic shredders that are plastic shredders. The fact that there are other plastic shredders means that this plastic shredder part becomes vague. It becomes vague. However, my kind of cheap excuse against this is that the topic that was given to me didn't really have a name for the plastic shredder, so I was kind of forced to just think of plastic shredder. I didn't want to have to make a quirky name for it, or even outright give a name to it. because it's not supposed to have a name. I don't own it. It's obviously owned by this guy, Joseph Toktokan II, along with some of his other research partners. But yeah, it gives a pretty solid overview that the topic is about plastic shredder and it's a project seller. Okay, maybe this part is kind of vague now that I'm thinking about it. Here comes the anti-bias. It's a good thing that I caught this because I was about to let it go with probably an S tier. Like a low S tier. But now, the term project seller is kind of weird. Because think about it. It seems like the plastic shredder is the one that sells projects. Right? Project seller. If you were an apple seller, you would be selling apples. But the plastic shredder doesn't sell projects. The plastic shredder is the project that is being sold. So I think that's my only caveat. Okay, and now I'm kind of starting to see it. It doesn't also talk about all too much. It doesn't talk about what Joseph Toktokan II's innovation and others' innovation to the plastic shredder is, because that is the main topic of the article. And other than the plastic shredder being the main topic, another subtopic in this was also how their innovation, Toktokan II's plastic shredder innovation, their specific like model of the machine of the plastic shredder that they made. I'm not gonna go into specifics though. One of the main topics of this article was also how I think easy it was to replicate, so you could easily sell it as well. It's easy to manufacture, so it's easy to sell. And plastic being a main source of pollution means that it's a high demand, so that you can immediately remove the plastic and then repurpose it for something else. But yeah, I guess there's too many things going on in the article itself that you can't really capture it in a short title like this. But it is pretty good though. I don't think it's either low S or just A tier. So we're gonna give you the very first B. I think that's still pretty selling. Pretty selling. Next. The next title we're going to be reviewing is this one. Forgot what this is. But yeah, sad to see that I lost my bias there. But that is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to remove the bias, as the intro and the stream description said. We are not going to be biased, surely. And that we are not. Most of the ones that we've rated so far are actually pretty horrible. Or at least for now. Only having a couple of gems every once in a while, in every year. Like what? This, diving deep into sinkholes, pretty good wordplay. Rabies retaliation regimen is pretty good as well. And then ChatGPT and its bad publicity. And calculator system math as AS2. Those were pretty good. But other than those, I think the rest were D tiers. A couple C tiers, not even reaching B. So B being the middle ground with this one, I think that's pretty okay. Plastic shredder project seller. It's also an alliteration, that's why I was kind of reluctant to give it a B. But after considering how vague it was actually, that's what got me to think, okay, it's too vague, actually. And this is a bit small on the eyes. There you go. Here's our next article title. And we've been reviewing a lot of short titles. Now, let's head on to the longer titles. Taking down 2 issues with 1 composting system. I have no idea how to say that. Taking down 2 issues with 1 composting system. There you go. I need to say it calmer. Because if I talk in this a tad bit faster voice, I kind of lose how to say composting. Yeah, see, I fumbled when it came to the posting part. I post videos. I compost videos. No, I don't recycle videos. Unless it's a stream and then I edit it to become a video. Anyway, enough distracting myself. Taking down 2 issues with 1 composting system. Already, I'm gonna say that I don't like this title. Sure, it took down 2 issues with 1 stuff. And yeah, this was one of the times that I was talking about how it also referenced another thing. It's the taking down 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah, that's what was supposed to be referencing. And I think that was a bit of a stretch with this one. Taking down 2 issues with 1 composting system. It doesn't even rhyme with birds nor stone. Taking down 2 birds issues with 1 composting system with 1 rock. Rock is 1 syllable. Composting system is 5 syllables. That's pretty long. That's almost as long as the... No, it is as long as the rabies retaliation regimen. Wait, rabies okay, maybe not. But yeah, I was thinking about Rogue Rat Runaway. But still, now it's pretty long, this title is. And this was, what, the 3rd article that I did in my last year? Wait, yeah, it is the 3rd to last article that I did. And for a 3rd to last article, I guess there were still a couple of improvements to be made, as shown with the last 2 stuff. Oh, especially with the last stuff that we tiered being a B tier. Kinda sad. But our last being our 2nd S tier, which is pretty good. However, now we're kinda getting less and less D tiers. So I think that's good. And speaking of having no D tiers, I'm very tempted to give this one a D tier. However, it still focuses on what that composting system does, and that is taking down 2 issues with it. It gives you information. That's something that I should probably mention as well. It gives you information, but what is the innovation with this composting system? Why is it so special that we need to make an entire article about it? And what are the 2 issues that it took down, or it's taking down? So that's the initial information. So you are kind of given the option if you want to continue reading about this, but it's not that interesting in my opinion. The article topic itself, I'm not just saying about what I wrote, what the title is. In general, the topic of this specific article is just pretty boring in my opinion. I don't even know how long this article took me to write. I was kind of getting tired when I was writing this, because each day during our practice we would have to write about 1 to 2 articles, and one took so long from reading. It's still 1 hour, but it feels like it took long because you read the article. Oh no, you don't read the article, you read the fact sheet, you come up with the title and then the content, or vice versa, content first and then title after. But still, it feels pretty long. It feels pretty laborious on the mental capacity. There we go. It's a better way of saying it, because I have no idea. You have to think about how you're gonna format it. Obviously, you're gonna do the hourglass, but the thing is, how are you gonna use the hourglass? You're gonna use it, but how? It's like technique. There we go. And sometimes I'm also required to have subheadings for each paragraph, or at least each group of subtopics that I do, and I'm not accustomed to that. And this specific one was my first one in a while. Some of my other articles as well, I'm not sure if you've noticed or if it's even in the pictures, but some of my earlier articles actually had subheadings as well for each subtopic that I had in the article itself. And those articles, the ones that had, oops, I bumped the mic, I'm sorry. Those articles, the ones that have subtopics and subheadings, or no, subheadings. All of the articles have subtopics, obviously. But these ones, the ones that have subheadings, are the one that make me tired the most, because I have to group them specifically into that group. Because the thing that I like about not having to make subtopics, or again, subheadings, my bad, is the flow. Having to connect this paragraph, let's say, to the next one. Like, how does this connect to the beginning of what we're gonna talk about next? And the disadvantage about having subheadings present in each subtopic makes it difficult to pivot to the next one. It is still possible, and it's not that difficult, but it makes it more difficult, if you get what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? Canada. Happy birthday, actually, Canada. Belated birthday. I think 4 days late, yeah. That yellow gremlin, and I am riding with yellow this time. So just a fitting thing. I didn't even intend for that to happen, but yeah. Talking about the the title itself, yapping. This guy keeps yapping. That's insane. Probably that's why he's such a good article writer, because he yaps so much. He puts all of the yapping energy into making all of these articles. Of these 19 articles, plus 3 from the competitions I've been to, that's 22. And I think some of the articles that I made were lost. So let's just give a courtesy +1. So 23 articles that I've made over the years. That's kind of crazy, considering someone that's been pretty busy working with school stuff as well, and then research as a senior graduating high school student, and then just variety as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if other people did that as well. I mean, it is possible, as you clearly see me doing right now, and it is also pretty fun. So I wouldn't be more surprised if someone were fully in on it, like this thing being their entire gist, making articles. That would be pretty awesome, actually. Oh, but the thing is, you wouldn't be able to show what you were writing due to plagiarism and stuff. But that would be useful to verify if someone is using... maybe not, actually. I was about to say that it could also be useful to verify if someone is using ChatGPT, but you could always just copy it from ChatGPT, not necessarily copy-pasting, but type the individual words one at a time, as if you were writing it, and then you'd pretend that you were thinking about writing those stuff. And speaking of using AI to make these... Or no. Speaking about AI making articles, I was the one that actually wrote all of these articles. I never once used ChatGPT. I'm just putting it out there. Because that is one of the main things now, with image generation also being a big thing. So it's kind of difficult to tell if someone is actually a quote-unquote artist or just an image generator user. And sometimes it's kind of in the reverse. If you're looking at art, you're thinking if it's AI or not. Sometimes it isn't, but AI has gotten so good that you think it is. Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm just that good though, even though I am, because I placed top 10 in the 3 years I've been in the competition. Just a quick brag tangent. And to humble me, I'm gonna rate this B again. Actually, there we go. Just to very quickly humble me, and I think I already kind of explained it, even though it's kind of hard to catch with all of my yappenings. But I rate this B because, yeah, it does reference something that's kind of quirky on its own, but that's not enough to make it catchy. But it's also not too vague, and I'm not ranking it C because it's not in the line of what even am I reading? Because you can tell that you can infer that we're talking about one composting system that takes down 2 issues. And clearly it should be big enough already. The idea of this composting system, this specific composting system, big enough to the fact that it merited the creation of an article about it. Yeah, and I'm trying to read through all of these just to get an idea about the article, if I remember stuff from it. But yeah, I think this composting system was also an innovation made by a certain group, much like the last one that we rated. This one by Toktokan II. This one I think was also an innovation by a group. I'm not sure if the people were mentioned, but that's actually something that I might look into, is using the names of people in the titles. I've never once tried that though. I did use names of groups though, names of like company, in some of my competition articles. I don't remember which ones though. When it comes to names, that's when I'm not sure if I'm even allowed, or if that makes the title catchy, including the name of the people concerned. Like if I added Toktokan to the title of this one, would it be interesting? I wonder. I can't even think of a title right now that works, that fits with Toktokan. I'd probably think about a title like Past J could. Past J from just a couple of months ago could. Now I'm in my retirement phase where I don't do these stuff anymore. I will eventually have to relearn them though once I start going into college. Not even just for the fact that it's math and it's journalism, it's writing new articles. It's from fundamentals on what I learned from doing these stuff. Like not being too hasty with yesterday, being not careless, being careful actually. And here, like understanding how each of the titles are made. Because that's always one of my concerns actually whenever I rejoin being the science journalist for the school, because it happens yearly and it happens for about a month or so. So I basically get 11 months of break until next school year, then I become the science journalist again. One of my concerns always back then was if I still have it, if I still understand what makes a science article and how Past J used to make articles and what made them good, what made them bad, so I can avoid doing the bad and then only do the good. But I never fully went back to some of my past articles. So for example, year 2J didn't necessarily look back to year 3J's articles to check on this, like what we're doing right now, breaking it down, seeing what affects what refers to this, and then that topic into this hot topic, whatever. If it's a news, if it's informative, if it's a review, opinionated, it can be opinionated, it cannot be opinionated. I'm just clarifying that. Anyway, up next, this is kinda cringe. Conductance and the qubit quantum manual. I bet you wouldn't know what this is referencing, but it references Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania. I know, insane reference. Nobody would have gotten that even if someone were, say, an Ant-Man fan. Conductance and the qubit is already pretty far off from Ant-Man and the Wasp. I even tried matching syllables. Ant-Man has 2, conductance has 3, but conductance ended with ans, so it's like man, an of the conductance, and then an of Ant-Man, and then the ant was like ductance, Ant-Man. Really, this title is just one big stretch. The article is about qubits, it's about quantum computers, not necessarily qubits. And quantum manual is also a reference to quantum mania, that specific term. But no, in this article, no, you don't see anything about how to work a quantum computer. It tells you how a quantum computer works. Maybe that's what the manual part comes from. But I really just did this title for the reference. I didn't think about the topic or the content of the article itself before I made the title. once I knew that the topic was quantum computers, already, okay, one, that made me excited because quantum physics is my probably most favorite science field of science, field of physics, specific branch of physics or whatever it's called. So I was already excited because I get to talk about quantum physics, and I'm pretty knowledgeable about quantum physics, or at least at a pretty base and base level, not too deep into it. Though I do still know a lot of stuff about the deep parts of it, like the mathematics that goes behind it. But anyway, I got happy because of that. But another reason why I got happy because Ant-Man was just big at the time when this was made. So, or not really, it already came out a couple of months ago when I made this article. But still, I was still hang up on making this reference. So much so that I tunnel visioned and then forced every inch of my brain to make this reference. This reference that doesn't even fully link itself to the content of the article. It's just there. Yeah, the information is a bit of a stretch. Conductance is also one of the topics that were one of the subtopics that were talked about in the later part of the article. How a conducting material was needed to like catch the qubits or store the qubits. And then this first paragraph, I believe, is talking about qubits, as you can see here. So it directly refers to that already. The terms are here. Their relationship to each other aren't. So you can expect to see qubits in the article. You can expect to see conductance in the article. But why are they related? The topic is about quantum computers. But even the word computer isn't anywhere to be seen here. And going off this from the common person's eye, you wouldn't know what the heck a qubit is. And you might know what conductance is, but, or at least to me, as a Filipino, I'm almost 100% sure that not a lot of people know what the word conductance is. And quantum manual as well. Again, with the manual, what's the manual? Are we building a quantum computer? No, it just talks about how a quantum computer works. Or more specifically, I think it talks about how a quantum computer is different and better, again, with respect to an actual, or no, and not an actual, or with respect to just a regular computer. I think that's most of the heart and soul of this article, not necessarily how to build or how to make, how a quantum computer works. It's more of comparing what we have now. And wait, okay, I just had to refresh my throat there. I'm kind of tempted to drink water, but we are nearing the end. You know what? I'm gonna drink water. It's very hot out. You know what? With Philippine summer being, I can't even say close because it is already Philippine summer and it always feels like that anyway. I should really start getting used to bringing a bottle of water with me every time now. Every time I stream, just so that whenever I feel the need to refresh my throat, I don't have to go to the be right back scene every once in a while. However, I do like the scenery of the be right back scene. It looks okay. It looks cute. It's simple. I'm kind of iffy if I should make a new be right back scene. But whenever I looked at it, I always kept thinking, nah, that's okay. It looks pretty simple but still pleasing to the eye. I think it has the CRT effect, so I'm not sure just how quote-unquote pleasing it is. Speaking of pleasing, this one isn't for sure. For sure isn't. I literally just went out to grab water just to refresh my throat. But now that I'm looking at this title again, I am once again realizing just how not good this title is. It's not D tier bad, it's just not good. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give it a green C. Because it's kind of stepping the line between being fish kind of bad, but it still gives a bit of information on what the article is about. So it's not all too bad. Do I have anything else to say here? I don't think so. Yeah, let's just leave conductance and the qubit quantum manual be. I'm better off not having to think about that for now. So anyway, let's move on to our next one. Here, I do the same trick actually that I did with the ChatGPT and its live. Oh wait, no, ChatGPT and its bad publicity. I kind of use a kind of 80% rhyme, 20% wordplay kind of thing. And that is 5G and its live gists. I think this one is also a pretty good title. Because one, it's short, much like the others. I wanna consider the calculators. There we go. I wanna consider the calculators is to math as AI is to ? As a short title. It doesn't look short because it has a lot of words technically. But I also kind of want to consider it to be a short title because technically you could rephrase it by making it calculators math AI ? That still technically means the same thing. Calculators is to math as AI is to. But I don't think that's allowed in journalism. You fully have to write it out. That's one of the things I learned. No contractions of terms or phrases. But I think goodbye is okay, even though the goodbye is a contraction of God be with you. But yeah, I would consider this short. And much like with the other S tiers that we had, like this one, this was also a pretty solid S tier. And it's just a pretty short title. It's ChatGPT and it's bad publicity. And despite not having an S tier, this one, Rabies Retaliation Regimen, being an A tier. So I think a common theme with with our titles, is them being short while still conveying a lot of meaning through those couple of words that were being said. And like this, gists mean, I'm not sure if this is common knowledge to others, because in the Philippines it's not. The word gists mean it's gimmicks, what it's about. So 5G and its live gists basically means what's 5G about, and that's exactly what the article is about. It's about telling what 5G is about, and you really can't get it any more simpler than this. Or maybe you can, but I opted to forfeit a bit of simplicity in terms of making this title a lot more catchy. And I think it's a pretty worth change. 5G is such a pretty simple two-syllable term. And then you have live gists. Also a pretty simple pair of words, only having 2 words, 2 syllables. and it already encompasses everything the subject is about, and not only that, the article as well. If I could, I would give this an S+ tier. And I don't know. I might be biased actually. But that's literally all there is to it. The article talks about 5G, what it is, what it's used for, comparing it to other Gs, 4G, 3G, and that's it. There's not like any other technical stuff here. And for how simple the topic is, the title matches not only the content of the article itself pretty well, but I guess also the simplicity of the article. You only talk about 5G and what it's about, and that's literally what live gists mean. And you might think that the term live looks a bit unnecessary, but it also fits actually, because we're talking about what 5G already can offer. Not only are we talking about the potential of what 5G can bring, but we're already talking about the live feed, the live thing, the concurrent thing, there you go, a better word. The live gists that 5G provides. Pretty deserving for an S+, I would say. So there you have it, 5G and its live gists. It's pretty good in my opinion. It's short, it's sweet, it's simple, straight to the point. It delivers everything you need to know. Oh, there we go. Speaking of knowing, I guess it also doesn't fall into the category of here's the first couple of information and here's like an invitation to wanting more information, like the calculators is to math as AI is to. That gives you the information that AI is powerful, but powerful in doing what? That what can be answered by reading the article. It gives you the first information that you need, and then new information that you can learn more about by reading the article. In this title, it doesn't really do that. There's no initial information and then follow-up information that you can learn more about. But I guess that is the trade-off with these shorter titles, is that they can't give that amount of depth into the title itself. But again, I did say earlier that I am considering calculators is to math as AI is to ? As a short title. So maybe S+ doesn't really belong to you, 5G and its live gist, so I'm sorry. I might have to stick to just giving out plain S's from here, because if I am gonna S+ anything, then yeah, it might be the calculator is to math as AI. Sorry, I burped. As AI is to ? But who knows? We still have 5 more titles. There you go. We are starting to approach the end game with this one. So here's our next title. Let's see if it can compare. And this is a pretty interesting title actually. It looks like it's referencing something. But I'm already gonna say this now. It's not referencing anything. It actually just looks like this. There you go. My brush should be okay again. Yeah, okay. Voyage in outer space, forge the asteroids. And it's also pretty subtly done how the rhyming is there. Voyage for forage and outer space for asteroids. I'm utilizing the sound from space and asteroids. And the article is about exploring outer space to grab stuff from asteroids, to take resources from the asteroids. And that's what foraging means, taking resources. I think this is another example of those short titles. And I think this is kind of the opposite of the other short titles that just head straight into the wanna know more information? Read the article. I think this is kind of the opposite. It's more of, this is the information. And it's up to you if you want to read the article. If you like understand what I'm saying. Because you're already saying that you voyage outer space to forage the asteroids. That already gives you the first information, but not the I guess build up to asking the reader to, if you want, you can read the rest of the article to know more. There's none of that. There's none of the read the article part. The title of Voyage in Outer Space Forge the Asteroids just gives the first information, which is you voyage in outer space to forage the asteroid. And you don't even need more information from that. Because why would you forge something? Well, you forge something to get resources. And wouldn't you know it, the article is about grabbing those resources from the asteroids. Well, to be fair, the article also talks about how you voyage in the outer space to forge the asteroids and how you forage the asteroids as well. It's more on the how aspect of you do both of these things. And not only that, it also, I guess, covers a bit of challenges that some of the groups in the article mentioned. Like, I think NASA is also part of the groups that I mentioned here on the article. But yeah, most of the article is just about the idea of going to space and how we can advance that later in the future, how we can optimize it, how we can forage more stuff with using lesser trips. We can forage more quicker using lesser trips and less materials to do so it's more worthwhile. And yeah, there's not a lot of intrigueness to wanting to go back to, no, not go back. There's not a lot of interest in wanting to read the article itself, because the title already does a pretty good job of saying what the article is about, so much so that you don't need the article to explain what this means. But much like with the Filipino moment, I don't think a lot of Filipino people know what forage means. So that's one of the downsides though. And that pushed it down probably to just bottom S. I'm gonna give this a bottom S and I'm gonna write it like that. It's not the best S that we've seen. And I don't think I'm biased, but I'm a bit scared that I might just be being biased with the more recent stuff that I did, because one, they're more recent, two, they're more closely related to present J, the one that's speaking right now. So I need a good rep. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm kind of nervous if I'm being biased. I think it's good. It does a pretty good it does a pretty good job, not a pretty good word. It does a pretty good job. I'm not saying great, it is good. And I don't want to say it's bad, because I don't think it is. Of incorporating subtle wordplay in it, which is the rhyming. And I think that's pretty good, because it makes it more memorable and fun to say. And it's not like last time where there are stops with the, what is it again? I forgot the title. What is it? Not the qubits. Which one was it? This one. The PT and CT, both of them rhyme, but PT has a stop and city is just one straight thing. You don't say pity, chat GPT. It's not a word, you're enumerating the letters one at a time, GPT. So there are stops, but when it comes to publicity, it is a word, so you just say city as one straight line, but in PT you stop for P and then start at T again. So it's rhyming like that. Oh, whoops. It's rhyming like that. And then voyage in outer space, forge the asteroids. I think it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of stops, I think. And if there are stops like this, where you just jump over them and then proceed. And I'm not saying you ignore them because you jump. I'm just saying that it's not a complete stop before you start again. Because the soft G, the J, voyage in outer space, and the T being part of a word again, so you can pronounce it like outer, which is better than out-er. And the S's in space, forage again, the soft G, and then the asteroids. That is a stop though, the T in asteroids. But still, it flows somewhat pretty smoothly, with only the T's being the ones in the way. The P in space also works together to form a pretty smooth flow. It's just space, not space. And unlike rabies retaliation regimen, you also don't fumble or spend too much time in one word. The rabies and then retaliation is pretty long, and then you'd go back to something shorter, which is the regimen, which also flows a bit smooth if it weren't for the M. But you see what I'm talking about. It's like the good of those two things, the bad publicity one and the rabies one. It's like the good of having a rhyme that's kind of 80% rhyme, 20% wordplay, and it flows smooth, but it's not like that good. But you don't linger too much in one word there. And then in rabies retaliation regimen, it's a short sequence of alliterating rhymes, but you spend too much time in retaliation. So removing the spending too much time and also incorporating still the kind of subtle wordplay rhyming, you get voyage in outer space, forge the asteroids. I think that's pretty good. The only thing though that I'm noticing out of repeating this again and again is how outer kind of contradicts with asteroids. So you say outer, but you also say asteroids. It's like ow, and then here it's like I don't know. A linguist can probably break down my wordplays a lot better. The rhyming, the alliterations, and the assonance. Oh, actually, I don't think I have any assonances yet. Just mostly alliterations. To be fair, they are easier though. So that's why I do them more often. But yeah, this is pretty good. It's a bottom S tier, though. I'm not fully giving it the high S tier, just because it does too good of a job of summarizing the content of the article. And that is one of the things that I've been like putting in the back of my mind while reading all of the titles, is that they should be the good balance, like the good boy, the who is it? The model student calculator systematas AI is 2. That's the model student of today's class. Because it's a pretty good job. It's wordplay, it's referencing... Okay, no, it doesn't actually reference anything. But it's pretty short. It gives you enough information to infer the topic, but also not enough to already be on your way after reading the introduction. It inclines you to read the article. So that's what I'm thinking. And here's our last written in paper, the very first one that I did in my very last year as a science journalist. Let's take a look. Kind of nervous. Here we go. Oh wait! This one is actually pretty good. And trust me, it is pretty good. You know what? I'm gonna give it a bit of bias. Not in grading it though, but by enlarging it, so psychologically you see it bigger, so it strikes you better. Anyway, that's enough of the bias there. The bias stops there. And it's kind of unclear because Past J messed up writing this and he didn't have any correction tape with him. This is supposed to be east, as in capital E capital A, capital S, and capital T. And I'll explain that in a bit. It at first looks like a pretty weird way of drawing attention to the word East. There are better ways to draw attention to the word East, but why East as well? Well, the title is The Sun Rises from the East. We know that for a fact. That happens wherever you are. It's the east of the earth, not your relative east. Specifically, the cardinal direction of the earth, east. And yeah, that is a fact. It is much like a pretty similar title that we gave a D to earlier, a grade of D earlier. And that is Fish Live, Die, and Kill. We already know that fish live, fish die, fish also kill. So what's the difference with this one? Why am I so hyped with it? Well, the topic. So already the title inclines you to read the article if you wanna like have just an idea of why East is capitalized. The topic of the article is an artificial sun. So the sun rises. We got that part. Specifically, the artificial sun that China is making. The experimental, I think this is the acronym, I forgot. The experimental advanced superconducting tokamak, I think, is what EAST stands for. So now you kind of get the idea that the sun, the artificial sun, is what this is actually referring to, the title. So that throws a curveball from the title to reading the article while still not being wrong. I'm not wrong. I'm not saying that the sun rises from the experimental advanced superconducting tokamak. You could read it as the sun, the actual natural sun, rises from the cardinal direction east. But once you read the article, now you kind of understand like the artificial sun, the sun that China is trying to make, is coming from this project known as the Experimental Advanced Superconducting Tokamak, which is East. And I think that's pretty creative. And that doesn't directly entice you. Maybe I'm just like hyping up the article because I already know what the article is about because I made the article. But just from the sheer, I guess, look of this, even if you... Okay, if we remove the error of how I wrote East here and then just think of it as the actual EAST in all caps, then it would look interesting. Why is it all capitalized? So in my opinion, I think that's what draws subtly, very faintly, the attention of the readers to the article itself. Because the what's it called again? I'm losing words from the hype of this. I guess the confusion, the reason that you're wanting to know EAST, why it's spelled like that. That is this article's version of the AI is 2 question mark. It doesn't directly say that you read this, but it is doing it in a way that you'll only fully understand it if you actually know what is being talked about. And even if you already know, like, let's say you encounter this article for the first time, but you already know what EAST is. You know that China is making an artificial sun and the project is called EAST, or let's just say East. You'd still find it interesting because this is a conditional scenario specific to this article probably, and it only then applies. Now it doesn't really apply, and that's because East is relatively new. When I made this article, or the publication of East, the popularity of East only rose like somewhat recently, like super recently when I made this article. So you'd be inclined to know more because maybe this article would give you more insight to that. However, I'm not gonna put that into my criteria, in my criteria of grading this. But regardless, I'm still giving it an S tier because I don't know. It's a pretty creative title. It references the fact that the sun, the natural sun, rises from the cardinal direction east, while also referring to the artificial sun that is coming from, that is being made from the experimental advanced superconducting tokamak. I think that's a pretty cool subtlety and if you know you know type of conversing between two people. I think this is probably one of my top 3 titles that I've ever made in my personal unbiased opinion. If I do say so myself, if I do speak for the audience. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, pretty good. And that gave me an idea to, after we're done ranking all of the titles that I've made, now I'm kind of curious which ones are my top 3 probably. But yeah, that is it for the paper written titles though. Here are the 3 next ones that I'll admit I just somewhat remember. I remember their titles though, that's why they're still present here in this stream right now. But specifically, let's start with this. Okay AI, whose AI should we help today? We've been giving year 3J a lot of bad talk with all of his bad articles, but probably it all comes down to this article title. And forget the fact that there aren't any spaces here nor here. It's just because of the font that I'm using, Debussy. I wonder if that's named after the famous musician Debussy. I forgot that guy's full name. I'm starting to fumble my words here. But yeah, this article title was made by Year 3J, if I do believe so myself. And this is his redemption, because I think this is a pretty good title. And this was the title that I was referring to earlier, that my coach and other literature teachers as well said to be probably one of, if not the best article that I've made in my time at this school. And I'm not just going off of obviously the title, the content as well, as they were going off of the content as well. But one of the notes that I got from making this article is just how good the title is, or at least in their opinion. But as soon as they were trying to break it down, even though I also knew how I did this, I also started getting more appreciation to this title. Because let's see how it's constructed. And remember, this was year 1. This was year 1 of Just Variety's science journalism. Let's see how it's constructed. So, okay AI, whose AI should we help today? Immediately, what can you see? AI, let's look at what we've already learned from the previous article titles that we've done. AI, yeah, that rhymes with AI. I think that's already a pretty good sign of where we're going. There are rhymes, there are subtle wordplay rhymes. But not only that, what do you do with AI, specifically conversational AIs? And that is, you input a prompt. Usually you're asking something. And what are we asking? Whose AI should we help today? This article, even though you can't see any of its written content, you can probably already infer. And I think that's what's good with this not being on the paper, because you also can't see the content of the paper itself. So you have to infer what the content of the paper is from this. And it's a pretty good exercise from a very good title in my opinion. Because AI is obviously from ailment, an eye that has an ailment, and we are helping the eye that needs helping. So what does that say? Well, one, the ill eye doesn't necessarily refer to any particular symbolism. It's just a general term that I chose to represent someone having trouble with something. Ill eye being someone like probably that's having difficulty to see what, like the answers to something, probably that need help. So yeah, there are a lot of layers to this title in my opinion. First of all, it's formatted in such a way that it looks like you're talking to a conversational AI. So like, okay, ChatGPT, whose AI should we help today? Something like that. But instead, I replaced it with a much more general term being AI, so you can rhyme it with AI. But I actually thought about AI first and then thought of a word to rhyme, or two words to rhyme with AI. Anyway, gets the point across. And not only that, it still manages to give an overview of what the article is about. We're helping. We're using AI to help. So the article would then be, you can infer that the AI is helping the people in whatever it is that they're doing. So we can say something like in the article, we can say that AI helps people who need a quick source of information. Although now I can't really generalize. That's why I'm having difficulty to say that right now, because some of the information are wrong. That's what the what was it again? The ChatGPT and its bad publicity article is about AI's mistakes. But yeah, anyway, just for an example, we need help figuring out something. We need information, so that's why we ask AI. So that's what the article is about. We're explaining, or I explain, how AI help people in the different ways they help people. Now, the format, the style, the content is like very similar to calculator is to math as AI is to. Both of them, I believe, were year 1 just varieties doing. I can't see what some of these are. Oh, here we go. Yeah, ChatGPT. Oh no, calculator system math as AI is 2. That was more of what was it again? That's more of an exposition to AI. Oh wait, this is actually year 2. Oh, so I did an AI topic every year. That's pretty interesting. But yeah, you could think of it as year 2's article on AI being the exposition. This one being a more advanced, I guess, by saying in what ways and how AI helps, and I guess how AI works. Not sure which article I talked about that on, but I'm also kind of thinking that I should have talked about that in every AI article, because we're treating these articles not like a series, not books, like not storybooks that follow a series, but more of individual standalone articles. So that's why I most likely explained how AI works in each of these articles, kind of changing a bit of information depending on what the topic is about. For example, in the ChatGPT and its bad publicity, I explained why and how some of the information it says is wrong. So that's how I kind of explained how AI works. I explained how AI works, and then the drawbacks of that specific system, because it uses math vectors, it uses tokens. I'm just gonna be straight. It uses vector quantities by assigning tokens to each term, each word you say. So that's how it gets its answers. But by computing those values, it doesn't necessarily give you to our right answer. It just gives you to the most common, most probable answer based from some average of all of those vector quantities of the question, based from the tokens that it got from the question itself. So that's the AI explanation that I said in the ChatGPT and its bad publicity article. But for here, okay AI, whose AI should we help today? It's more of on the practical side, I guess, is how I explained how AIs work. For the title itself though, yeah, we can infer a lot from the article itself already just from the title. And so what's its catch? How do we say to the viewer, how do we say to the reader, like, okay, so here's the first information and this is the information. If you want it, go read the article. How do we say that? Well, whose AI are we helping? So it works in two ways. We know that we're helping the AI. But who? Which groups, which people, which type of people are these? Perhaps let's just say students, workers, office workers probably, that get benefit from AI. Are they the ones that have AI? And if they have AI, do they still even need it? But the title also says that the AIs are the ones that we're helping. So you can also infer that the people that need AI are the ones that are being talked about in the article itself. I'm almost 100% sure no one will look at this title and think about all of the stuff that I just said. But instinctively, you kind of get the idea that, first of all, it's talking about AI. Second of all, I like the title because it looks like it's talking to AI. And second of all, yeah, we're talking about helping people. So from those three already, you have established a pretty good sense of what the article is about and what the article will give you. So I think that's pretty good, and it deserves an S tier. Earlier we were just giving away grades of D and grades of C out and about as if it was free stuff. Now we've gotten S all over the place. There we go. That's 3 S's in a row. And this is our 4th. Yeah. And this was, again, let me remind you, this title, let me quote it. This title was made by Year 1J in his science journalism career in high school. This is where he stepped up. And to my coaches, to my literature teachers, to them, this was like my magnum opus back then. But yeah, I wouldn't say this is all I had to offer though, because we still have one more. And I think this one more is also pretty good. And that is... Oh wait, okay. This actually doesn't count. It's the last one that we're gonna review. This one, I think I kind of fumbled on this one. If the first one that we reviewed in these text titles, the ones that aren't just pictures from a piece of paper, the first one that we reviewed, the AI one, that was from Year 1. This, I think, is from Year 2. Charge rev and to the road goes electric vehicles. This is more of like a slogan that a company would make, like an electric vehicle company would make. And let me just break the streak here because we've been giving away a lot of S's too much, and say that the article talks about electric vehicles. We got that much. But charge rev and to the road goes binted doesn't really say anything about the article. Yeah, it talks about electric vehicles. Yeah, it talks about how electric vehicles work. You can probably infer that from charge, but that's a stretch. That's a pretty big creative jump. And rev, yeah, you're revving the engine of the electric vehicle, but are you really? It's an electric vehicle. Probably you're preparing. So the article talked about making EVs viable. EV, by the way, short for electric vehicle. Making EVs viable on the road. And then that transitions to the next part of the title, which is to the road goes electric vehicles, implying that EVs are in fact viable for road travel. And then the article just proceeded to say what electric vehicles were and then compare that to traditional vehicles, to traditional gasoline vehicles. There's really nothing going for this title, which is kind of sad to say. I'm tempted to give it a D tier because the article did talk about charging the electric vehicles and it mentioned it here, but the charging part of electric vehicles wasn't the main attraction of the article. It's electric vehicles. Okay, so to put it into perspective, it's more of this is a topic, and to the road goes electric vehicles is another topic. It looks like 3 different topics, but in actuality, we're just looking at electric vehicles, how they work, and in comparison to traditional cars. The other D tiers that we've given are more so D tiers because they were lacking information or clarity. And I think this time, this one is a D tier, not because it lacked anything, although it did. I think it's more of it put too much unnecessary information to the title. Like, yeah, it's good. It looks awesome to look at. Charge rev and to the road goes electric vehicles. It looks like you're promoting the electric vehicles. And trust me, you got that across. Electric vehicles is the subject of at least this sentence if you're looking at it as a sentence. But what's charge rev though? Like, yeah, that's a build up to... It's like saying ready, set, go. But ready and set also have a place though. They're there for a reason. We're not saying go is the main subject of ready, set, go, if you know what I'm saying. This is probably not the best analogy to put this through, but I hope you have an idea of like, what is this guy saying? What is this guy talking about? But yeah, I'm saying how ready, set, and go in the enumeration. If you look at it from enumerating words, ready, set, and go. Ready is telling you obviously to get ready, and set would mean all of the preparation that you did from ready. Put that on you right now, because up next we are going to go. Ready, set, go. But here, so yeah, we're charging the electric vehicles, but was it fully talked about in the article? Like, yeah, it talked about how you can charge the electric vehicles for how long and how long charge that would give you. That's not the main topic of the article though, so let's say this is the main article. It's probably only ever talked about in this short portion of the entire big thing. And the rev didn't even get mentioned. You could probably argue that the rev that Past J wrote here is referring to how fast electric vehicles go, especially in comparison to traditional vehicles. Like, electric vehicles aren't the fastest, but they are fast enough to at least be just on the dust of traditional vehicles. It can't go super fast. There are some though, I did mention that in the article as well, I think. But yeah, it's not necessarily known for its speed though. Like, yeah, sure, speed is needed to know if the vehicle is viable, because you wouldn't want a vehicle that's completely free, completely safe, but goes slower than how you walked. That's just inconvenient, I think. So rev doesn't do a whole lot in this title. And the electric vehicles, that's our main title. That's our main topic. That's all of this. So it's weird. I'd give it, because of that lengthy just explanation, I think that already puts the last nail in the coffin as to why charge rev and to the road goes electric vehicle goes to D tier. I didn't mean to double up on the goes. To the road goes Binted. No, to D tier you go. Electric vehicles title. That's pretty good though. We've broken our our S tier streak, and let's start it up again. No, we can't even fully make a streak now because this is the last title that we're reviewing, and this was what I was talking about. The title that kind of sums up how Jay talks to the readers when I'm making science articles. I'm not just like saying, oh, this is what you know, this is what the article is about, read this because this and that, calculators, moment, AI, blah blah blah. This is why I think a reader would even read my articles in the first place. It's all about the title. And one of the most common techniques when making an entire article is to do the content first and then make a title next, because the content is what should dictate the title, because the title talks about, very quickly and quick summation, talks about what the content is about. And that's actually why this one failed, because the title failed to talk about the content. So that's why the content and the title are at dissonance with each other. But for this title though, it doesn't necessarily talk about what the content of the article is about. It's more of exposing kind of the mentality that goes on from past Jay creating all of these former titles that we've just rated. And that is cognitive conditioning. The trick is cognitive conditioning. So why were all of those titles the tiers they were? Well, we set up rules. But the thing is, I never said that they were rules. We just arbitrarily followed them. We could have rated them based off of how many letters they used. But from repeatedly doing that, we have sort of imprinted this idea that we rated them with how good they were. And to be fair, that was also kind of the idea from the beginning anyway. But still, this article that I made, its contents are about cognitive conditioning, specifically Pavlov's conditioning, how it evolved from simply, the experiment of Pavlov's dog salivating when it sees food, and then Pavlov's dog not salivating when it heard the bell ring. And then when the dog saw food, it would salivate. But now that the dog is familiar with the sound of the bell, you also ring the bell while it's salivating in reaction to the food. What happens in the brain of the dog is that it connects the bell sound to it salivating as well. So not only does it connect the salivation to the food, it also connects it to the bell. So after training this, after getting the dog familiar with it, at some point, Pavlov's dog started to salivate regardless if there was food or anything, just from the noise, just from the sound of the bell ringing. That's what Pavlov's dog is about. That's conditioning. You taught the dog how to salivate on command, or not necessarily, just from triggers. And then it evolved. The content of the article says how it evolved into positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement as well, or negative conditioning, where you punish the subject for doing what it's not supposed to do, and you reward it if it does the thing that you want it to do. There we go. And that's cognitive conditioning. And there's nothing really new that the article I made was about. It's mostly from informing. But other than informing, the entire article itself, I'm just gonna put this out there, even though it has nothing to do with the title, or maybe it does. The article was also, other than informing, more about having a say, me having a say, because the entire article was formatted in such a way that there were bells, there were There were food, there were bells. This is just an analogy, by the way. There were foods, there were bells in the article. And at the end of the article, there was only the bell. But to the people that I have given this article to, they were connecting a certain part of their thought process, a certain thing that they were thinking of by the end of the article, despite me not even referring to it anymore in the article. And I think that's what's insane, is how I managed to do that. I successfully Pavlov's dogged everyone who have read my article, even some of my friends, actually, and the coach and some of the literature teachers as well. I think that's pretty impressive. And that leads us to our title once again, cognitive conditioning. Why a reward will make you read this. What was the reward? Well, it was the trick. And formatting wise of how this title goes, we already say what we're talking about in the article, which was cognitive conditioning. And why will a reward make you read this? That question is what makes you read it. And I don't know, it could also be reverse psychology if you're trying to see if a reward will in fact make you read this, or is reading the article reward worthy. And trust me, the article itself, I cannot show it because, again, for plagiarism and the prior reasons I've said at the start of the stream. But believe me, there is somewhat of a reward at the end of the article. I think that's pretty good. So this time, I'm kind of forced to actually connect the title to the article itself, to the content. Now, why is that? Because the reward refers to the end of the article. Cognitive conditioning refers to the entirety of the article. Why a reward will make you read this entices the reader to read the article. This is an I, by the way. There you go. So this may not have been my best, because I don't think this is my best title. But I do think that this is one of the more trippy, or one of the more playful when it comes to just ideas and thoughts. I think this is the most playful I've been in a title, because it directly refers to the reader as well. I don't think I've done anything like that in the other titles as well. And to verify, let's just check real quick. Yeah, year 2. We're still at year 2. Feel music, bro. Conductance in Qubit, Live Gists, Voyage the Outer Space, East. Yeah, we have never, or I have never, referred to the reader themselves. So this is kind of a break from the taboo, because again, we're not supposed to look at all of these titles, all of these articles as if they were a series, but this plays around with the idea, just the idea of common as well, of the, I'm not sure if commonity, the sense of being common. I wasn't sure if commonity was a word, but the sense of being common in articles, or at least in science articles, that it almost always never refers to the reader. I think that's another reason why this title is so playful, because it breaks expectations. It directly refers to the reader, which is already kind of surreal. It's not unsettling, but it's subtly, ever so subtly surreal, because you don't often see a title refer to you, the reader, you, the viewer. So you kind of have this sense that I'm talking to you. The one that wrote this article is talking to you. And why? Why would the article writer? Why would the journalist want to talk to the reader? Well, I want to give you a reward. And what even is the article about? Well, it's about cognitive conditioning. And I just proved it by talking to the reader. By you visualizing in your head, because this is just an innate thing in humans. It might not be the same for everyone, or it might not even happen to some other people, but the fact that I referred to you as you here in this part of the title is already kind of within the outskirts of what is usual. I don't know, it's kind of difficult to explain. What's not difficult to explain though is why I give this an S tier, because of all of that. So playful, it's different. It's different from all of these, while still maintaining the fact that it gives you an information on what it is. Cognitive conditioning has something to do with the statement why a reward will make you read this. But it's also referring to you, the reader, why a reward will make you read this. Why? Why are you going to read this just from a reward? It's such a mix of all of these things. If in the individual there we go, that's so hard for me to say, I don't know why. If in the individual parts of the other titles we've tiered, we've put in a tier list sort of, have their qualities pretty easy to discern. Like you can pick them out as we did earlier, breaking them apart, taking it piece by piece, identifying that, oh, this is rhyming, this is this and that. In this one, you kinda cannot see any of those because it's so different. It's like uncanny valley. There we go. I think that's a pretty good description for this type of text, especially with all of these ones compared to this one. If we're gonna plot on how like surreal or normal these titles are, this one would be in the uncanny valley, but it does it in a way so that it's still a read. I'm just gonna say it. It's still a read. Like it's solid. As for solid, you know what? Solid. It's pretty good. Literally rating my own stuff right now, and then I just keep giving them S tiers. But hey, this is my opinion. You guys can go back to the stream. You can always check out the other article titles I've made, and you can rate them for yourselves. If you think this was an F tier or a D tier, then please do say so, or don't, because you might hurt my feelings. But if you do want to share your thoughts with others or to me as well, you can check the description of this stream. Subtle promotion, shameless plug. You can check the description of this stream to check out the Discord server, the Just Variety Discord server, and there you can talk about your thoughts on this as well, and not only this but also other stuff, maybe recommendations, just chat with other Just Variety viewers and whatnot. Whatever, it's up to you. Just the Discord server in the description of the stream. And that's a pretty good segue in my opinion. That also, I'm going to put this out. But yeah, let's end the stream off by choosing our top 3. This already, I've talked so much about this already. I think that's one of my top picks. Obviously not any of the C tier ones. ChatGPT and its bad publicity after the storm that was cognitive conditioning. I'm kind of starting to think that ChatGPT and its bad publicity isn't that good now, actually. This was pretty bad as well. Quantum Manual. 5G in this live gists. Is also a pretty solid pick, actually. Or was it? Okay, let's put that there for now. This one is bottom S, I'm not sure. This one is pretty good as well. So I guess my top 3 were this one from year 3, this one from year 3, and this one from year 3. Oh, so see, I guess I did improve. Or at least in my opinion now, when in terms of constructing titles now, I managed to do a lot now, because I also noticed that from the ones that I've chosen, they all encompass a different attack, a different approach to how to entice and inform the viewers, the readers, on what the content of the article is about, while also still asking the readers to, you want to learn more about this? You gotta read the article, bro. Stuff like that. But yeah, my top 3 would be these. Specifically, probably in the order of 5G and its live gists at top 3. Top 2 would be this one actually. Cognitive conditioning, why a reward will make you read this. And my first one would be The Sun Rises from the East. It might be a low-hanging fruit, but at the time when I made this, I was like pretty proud of myself. And I think that adds on to the bias as to why I put this at top tier, or the top 1 spot. But yeah, these were my ratings for all of the article titles that I've done over the past 3 years. Dang. And in a couple of months, I would already be streaming for 2 months. Oh my gosh. But enough looking too much into the past and too much into the future. This stream is done. Yeah, I think. Yeah, that was pretty fun. I didn't expect that I'd reach that I would reach about 3 hours in this. I guess I had too much fun doing all of these, like creating all of the titles that I've done. And yes, the colors that I did use, I guess I didn't mention this earlier. Of the colors that I used were from the actual tier list maker website. And that's kind of like the swatch that I have on the right side of the screen right now. So yeah, I'm just gonna lay all of these out so we can see all of the things that I wrote. There we go. That was pretty fun. Tomorrow, actually, we have an Overcooked stream. I have no idea if I'm gonna go back to World 6. I think tomorrow I can start actually doing some intense gamer moments now that I've had my break with just yapping, and then weekend, and then just yapping on the behind the scenes of how I did the Just Variety rebrand stuff, and then math yesterday, even though math yesterday almost actually just fried my brain. Not actually though. But yeah. And with today's stream, me yapping over literally the stuff that I made, which were the article titles that I've did over 3 years. So let me just finish spreading these out. We don't have a lot of space right now. Okay, I gotta do this quickly. There's still lunch. I don't want to miss lunch, even though I don't know what lunch is for today. Oh, here are our streaks of S's. Our S streaks. Oh, wordplay. I love wordplay. But yes, that's also another thing actually. This just goes to show how much I love playing around with my words. How much I don't know, I guess in my opinion, how I get creative with the words I say. AI, who's AI? Should we help today? And then charge rev and to the road goes electric vehicles. Not my best. I'm gonna put you with the other D grades as well. And this, our last S. I think we might have actually just given out S's this time. Let's do a final tally count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 S's. And then how many A's? Only 2 A's? So 7 S. You know what? I'm gonna write that down. We have 7 S's. We have 2 A's. Oh my gosh. And then how many B's? 2 B's as well? That's 2 T's. Or Anyway, how many C's? This one, I think we had a lot of. We had 1, 2. The iffy C. I'm gonna consider that as a C as well because technically that's what's written. 4 C's. Okay. 4 C's. Then how many grades of D? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Okay. So overall, individually, we gave S grades to most of the article titles that I've done. But combined though, A, B, C, and that's not C, that's D. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I thought I counted wrong. I thought I didn't count this one in, and also this one. But yeah, combined, there are more A's, B's, C's, and D's. There are 12 of anything but S, and 7 S's. So that's our final grade. And our top tiers, or my top tiers, being cognitive conditioning, 5G Units, Live Gists, and the Sunrises from the East. So those are my rankings. Those are my top 3s as well. You should go tell me yours in the Just Variety Discord server down in the description. But yeah, for this stream, I'm gonna end it. And enough yapping. There's a stream tomorrow, which is Overcooked. We're probably gonna do the DLC tomorrow, so stay around for that. For this stream though, it's a bye-bye. I had so much fun just yapping about the titles that I've made. Yeah. Bye everyone, take care. Thank you for watching the stream. I had so much fun with this. And I think this is going to be the last one in a long while of our school-related streams. So yeah, bye-bye, take care. Thank you. That was so fun, oh my gosh. Bye-bye.